There's a particular kind of wrongness that the human brain catches before it can explain itself. You have felt it before. Someone who looks almost exactly like someone you know, except their proportions are a little off. A smile that doesn't quite sync with the eyes above it. A feeling that something is performing normal rather than actually being normal. Kara felt that exact sensation while watching a baby lion cub play in its enclosure. She didn't know yet that within a matter of days, she would be hiding under a desk while the head of an elephant that she had helped raise from birth tried to strangle her with its own trunk. She didn't know that the thing wearing that elephant's body wasn't an elephant at all. She didn't know that an entire American city was about to be sealed off from the rest of the world because of what was living inside the animals at her zoo. It started with a smile. It ended with Omaha disappearing behind a wall of quarantine. Kara worked as a zookeeper at the Henry Dorley Zoo, and if you had asked her a month earlier what her job was like, she would have told you it was the best one she'd ever had. She specialized in elephants. She had personal relationships with every one of them, the kind of bond that builds slowly over years of feeding, cleaning, and simply being present. Lolly was her favorite, a playful, affectionate elephant who sprayed water into the air just to make everyone around her laugh. There was also Hondo, the only adult male in their small herd. Steady, predictable, the kind of animal whose behavior you could practically set a clock by after 5 years of working alongside him. And there was Amandra, the newest calf, still young enough that Kara had personally helped bottle feed her months earlier. This was Kara's world. Routine, warm, and entirely safe. On the day everything changed, she wasn't even working. She was on her break, wandering past the lion enclosure to see the zoo's newest attraction. A trio of lion cubs born just a few weeks earlier. She had no professional reason to be there. She just wanted to see something cute. What she saw instead was the first thread in something that would unravel an entire city. The cubs were playing exactly the way cubs are supposed to play. Tumbling, wrestling, chasing each other in clumsy circles. All except one. The youngest cub, a small female named Kamani, hung back from the others for a moment longer than felt natural. Kara almost didn't notice. Almost. Then Kamani smiled. Not the relaxed, half-lidded expression of a content animal. A full, deliberate smile, lips pulled back to expose every one of her 2 white, perfectly square teeth. It happened fast. Fast enough that Kara immediately tried to write it off as a strange angle, a trick of light, her own tired eyes playing games with her after a long shift. Then Kamani looked directly at her. There was something satisfied in that look, something aware. The cub held her gaze for a beat too long before Kara's watch buzzed against her wrist, breaking the moment. When she looked back up, Kamani was playing normally with her littermates. Just another cub doing cub things. Kara walked away, telling herself it was nothing. But the feeling followed her the entire way back to the elephant enclosure, sitting at the base of her skull like an itch she couldn't reach. She almost forgot about it entirely, distracted by Lolly spraying water joyfully into the air. Then Marcus appeared. In 5 years of working together, Marcus had barely spoken to Kara outside of basic zoo logistics. He practically lived inside the lion enclosure and rarely left it for anything other than going home. So when he leaned into the elephant area and asked if she had a minute to talk, Kara knew immediately that something was wrong. He wouldn't talk inside the pen. He insisted on stepping out into the access corridor first, somewhere the animals supposedly couldn't hear them. "Did you notice anything?" he asked. "About Kamani?" Kara's stomach dropped. Before she could answer, Marcus cut her off with one more sentence that changed the entire shape of the conversation. "It isn't the mouth she uses, you know." Kara had no idea what that meant. She didn't get the chance to ask, because that's when Marcus nearly jumped out of his skin. Hondo had appeared behind them, silent, which should have been impossible for an animal his size. He was kneeling down, peering through the small human-sized door in the corridor wall, watching the two of them with an unsettling stillness. Marcus didn't say another word. He turned and sprinted away, disappearing around the corner before Kara could even process what had just happened. Left alone with Hondo, Kara heard him trumpet, low and slow. The exact sound he made when he wanted food, except his face showed absolutely none of the curiosity that usually came with that sound. Just unblinking, locked eye contact, the kind an elephant has no biological reason to hold with a human for that long. As Hondo finally turned to go back into his pen, Kara caught sight of something on his trunk. A thin red seam running its entire length. Like a stitch, like something that had been put together rather than grown. Over the following days, Marcus would pass her around the zoo, open his mouth as if he were finally going to explain himself, and then his eyes would go wide with fear and he'd vanish into the crowd before a single word came out. The anxiety from that day never fully left Kara's body. It sat with her constantly, low and persistent, until the night her phone rang and changed everything again. Marcus didn't even say hello. "Kara, it's me. You're home, right?" His voice shook like he was running, the words coming out in short, breathless bursts. "Apartment 206, right? Leave it unlocked. I need help." Then the line went dead. Kara stood frozen by her own front door, completely unsure what to do with what she had just heard. Before she could decide, something slammed against the door hard enough to make her jump back. "Kara, please open the door." She looked through the peephole and saw Marcus glancing frantically down the stairwell, footsteps echoing closer behind him with every second. Tears streaked his face. His voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "Please." She opened the door, and he collapsed on her floor the instant it swung open. She slammed it shut behind him, barely getting the deadbolt locked before something hit the other side. "What the?" Marcus clapped a hand over her mouth. "Just be quiet. It will go away soon. I promise." Then Kara saw it. A lion's paw, sliding playfully beneath the gap at the bottom of her door. Testing. Probing. Like a cat pawing at a closed door for attention. Except on the other side of that paw was something that had followed a grown man across the city. It only retreated when a neighbor's door opened down the hall. Once it was finally safe to breathe, Marcus explained everything in halting, panicked fragments. They knew he knew. They had been watching him at the zoo ever since that day in the corridor. And when he realized he was being followed home, Kara's apartment was the only place he could think to run to. The way he had gotten her address was its own small horror. He had gone into HR, found the door left open, found her file already pulled up on an unlocked computer, as if someone or something had wanted him to find it. "They're smarter than they should be," he told her. Then he said the sentence that made the floor feel like it had dropped out from under her. "Kamani was in my kitchen today. The door was locked. Everything was exactly how I left it. Except her." Before Kara could fully process that, every light in her apartment died at once. Not a flicker, not a dimming. Instant, total darkness. Then her patio door exploded inward, glass scattering across the kitchen tile, followed by a strange muffled thud, like something heavy wrapped in fabric had landed inside her home. Then a click. Marcus didn't wait to explain that part. He yanked the door open and pulled Kara through just as something hit it from the other side hard enough to make it slam. As they ran, Kara heard a thin, high-pitched cry coming from inside her apartment. "Fragile. Familiar. That's a bat," she said, trying to convince herself as much as him. The cry came again, longer this time, warbling up and down, almost like it was searching for the right pitch, almost like it was trying to scream. They ran. They spent that night in a cheap motel, splitting the cost between them since Kara hadn't even grabbed her wallet on the way out. Neither of them slept well. Every time Kara drifted off, she woke up certain something was standing just outside the window, listening to her breathe. Despite everything, they both felt an inexplicable pull to return to the zoo the next morning, as if staying away might make things worse rather than better. Marcus looked like he was walking to his own execution by the time they reached the employee entrance. Inside, chaos was already brewing. A coworker rushed up to Kara asking what had happened with the elephants overnight. All of them were skittish. Only Hondo would go on display. Kara lied immediately, telling her she hadn't noticed anything unusual on her last shift. When she finally reached the elephant enclosure herself, the difference hit her instantly. Normally the herd rushed to greet her. This time, none of them moved. Lolly stood frozen, curling her entire body around her calf, Amandra refusing to let her go. The rest of the herd huddled tightly behind her. That's when Kara saw it. a thin red seam, identical to the one on Hondo's trunk, now running halfway down Amandra's. The calf was shaking violently. When Kara stepped closer, the entire herd erupted into low, bone-shaking rumbles. She managed to calm Lolly just enough to approach. And that's when she found the bite mark on Amandra's hind leg. Narrow, too narrow for any animal she could think of, and completely bloodless, despite being deep enough to expose something pale and gleaming at the bottom of the wound. Then the seam on Amandra's trunk reached its end and flexed, almost as if testing itself. Settling in, the calf's shivering stopped immediately, and Lolly threw her own daughter away from her body in a single desperate motion. Amandra hit the ground, rolled once, and stood up completely calm. She looked at Kara, trumpeted lazily, walked toward the exit gate like nothing at all had happened. Kara opened it for her, without fully understanding why her body was even cooperating. The moment Amandra reunited with Hondo outside, every alarm bell in Kara's mind went off at once, but it was already too late to undo what she had just done. Kara quarantined both Hondo and Amandra under the thin cover story of sudden aggression. For a brief window, it seemed to be working. Then everything fell apart at once. While reviewing camera footage with the headkeeper, Kara spotted a mouse beneath the security desk. A tiny red seam split across its nose before it vanished into a hole in the wall. Radios across the zoo erupted simultaneously. Different animals, different enclosures, all reporting the same impossible behavior. Marcus called her, his voice cracking with a panic that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with something physically happening to him. He could taste raw meat, feel it sliding down his throat, despite not having eaten anything. Then Kara heard metal tearing apart on her end of the line. A trumpet, the unmistakable sound of something enormous breaking free. Hondo found her. She watched, frozen beneath a desk, as his bloodshot eye appeared around a doorframe, his trunk sliding through the chain link with deliberate, patient intention. The gate gave way entirely. Monitors shattered above her. A trunk wrapped around her throat. Then a gunshot. Kyle had arrived just in time, and what Kara saw next would stay with her for the rest of her life. Where Hondo's head should have been, there was nothing but a writhing mass of black worms, twisting over each other, already trying to reach upward and rebuild what had just been destroyed. The trunk around her neck went limp, fell to the floor, and grew legs like a centipede, crawling back toward the headless body to begin knitting itself together again. Kyle dragged her out before she could fully process what she was looking at. As they fled, she glanced back to see Hondo's massive body folding in on itself, deflating, slithering through the corridor like something with no bones left at all. Kyle nearly shot Amandra when she blocked their path, but Kara knocked the barrel down at the last second, unable to see the calf as anything other than the baby she had bottle-fed months earlier. The recoil still managed to take out the calf's legs, and Kara had to be physically dragged past her crying form. She never saw what happened to Amandra. She only heard it. Hondo's trunk opening into something with far too many teeth, absorbing the calf entirely, doubling his own size in less than 30 seconds. By the time Kara and Kyle made it outside, the front gate of the zoo no longer existed. Just twisted steel and an open path leading directly into the city of Omaha. Kara is currently hiding inside the aquarium building with Kyle and a handful of other families who managed to find shelter there. None of the things, as she calls them, have made it inside yet. The last update she received was that the entire city of Omaha has been placed under quarantine. She doesn't know what these things are. She doesn't know how long they had been there, replacing animals one seam at a time, waiting patiently inside bodies that everyone trusted completely. She only knows one thing for certain, and it's the same thing she wants every single person reading her account to understand. They were never animals. So here's what I want to know from you. If something can replace the body of a creature you have known and trusted for years, perfectly enough that you don't notice until it smiles at you, or until a single red seam catches the light just right, how would you ever know who or what is standing in front of you? Tell me in the comments. Because Kara didn't know, and neither would you.